all your title work needs.
Your information station. WTIM.
Welcome to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper. People's Bank and Trust proud to bring you this stream on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com's Facebook and WTIM TV YouTube. They put people first, alongside Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. I'm here on the phone with Secretary of State candidate David Moore. Great to have you here, David Moore.
It's my honor. Thank you so much.
Well, tell everybody a little bit about your background and why you want to be Secretary of State.
Yes, my background, raised in Chicago, went to a school called Simeon High School and was raised in the church. Started serving at an early age in church as a junior deacon, and then got involved in public service at Operation Push, advocating for workers' rights. I didn't know what I was doing. The Willie Taplin Barrel, who came at Operation Push, just put a sign of our hand at the old packing house and say, start marching and start screaming. And what we were doing was fighting for workers' right at that age. Then I lived in the projects of Chicago. My uncle wanted to give us a better chance at life, so they moved us out and moved us to the Inglewood community. My uncle was an assistant precinct captain, and he would pay me $5 to run up and down the street, putting literature in people's mailbox. But I didn't care about any politics. I just wanted that $5 to get some Boston baked beans and Chico sticks with. But when I turned 13, I met Harold Washington. He was a state senator running for Congress, and he talked about the importance of young people being involved in their community. And at that point, that $5 no longer became important to me, but serving my community became important to me. And I just started serving in my community. I went on to Western Illinois University, and I became an RA, and it was in Western where I learned to love Illinois. All I knew coming up was Chicago, but when I got to Western and Macomb, I got to travel outside of Chicago. I got to see places like Springfield. I got to see places like Galesburg, Peoria, different places I used to just hang out and have fun in, and that so much so that I wanted to live in the downstate. And so when I graduated from Western with a dual degree in accounting and operations management, I had 2 job offers, one from State Farm in Bloomington and one from Ralston Purina in the Quad City. So I elected to go to Ralston Purina as an accountant, and I stayed there for a couple of years until my dad came down with cancer. They gave him 6 months to live, so I came back to Chicago to help my mom, and I ended up staying there. And I eventually worked for several other Fortune 500 companies like the Clorox Company and Avery Dennison Corporation as an accountant. And then I eventually ran for alderman in the community that I grew up in. I ran against the establishment. I didn't have any money. I didn't have all the endorsements, but because of my years of service, the people elected me. And I love serving people, and that's what attracts me to the Secretary of State seat. Why I'm running, it's a calling. I tell people there are 2 people I keep my eyes on. Anybody saying they want to be a preacher, and anybody saying they want to be an elected official, because it's not something you run to, it's something you run from, and it's a calling on your life because you're serving God's people, and especially the least of us. And I tell people the least of us are not always poor people. It's poor people who are ignored, poor people who are discriminated against, people who do not get access to their government, women who work the same jobs as men but don't get the same wage. Those are the people that I fight for, regardless of race, creed, color, ethnicity, gender. Those are the people that I fight for. And that's what attracts me to this Secretary of State seat. It's a nonpartisan seat. I get to serve everybody, sort of like when I was an RA in college, where I served people, whether they lived in Pekin, Taylorville, whether they lived in Quincy. I just served young men and women when I was in college, and that's what I like doing. And so that's why I want to run for Secretary of State, so I can just continue to be a servant and serve the people, because it's a servant seat.
Sounds like you really take pride in the fact that you were able to capture that spot on your hometown community's city council. In a way, it feels like you have a bit of a, pardon me, and I'm pulling this also from a release of yours. You have an underdog type mentality. Could you elaborate a little bit about that along with the campaign?
Absolutely. So started out when coming out of the projects of Chicago, people tell you you're not going to make it out there. You're going to end up in gangs, and you won't even graduate from grammar school. You won't even graduate from high school. I was able to make it out of Robert Taylor. When then they say you won't even get to college, they're not going to let you in college. I was always the underdog. You won't graduate from college. Then I majored in accounting. I even had teachers. Oh, this you got to accounting has to love you. This separates the accounts from the bookkeepers. You'll never be an accountant. And I have to deal with all that. Always the underdog. Got my accounting degree. Ended up getting a job with a Fortune 500 company. And when I ran for alderman, which I wasn't looking for the seat, I tell people it'll find you. I just love helping people because I hate politics. I got to be honest. I hate politics. So dirty, it's so nasty, and it's nothing you want. But when God calls you to serve His people, you got to be married to the purpose and not the position. And you got to be in a position where you're always willing to lose the seat to do the right thing. And that's why I have been effective as an alderman, because I'm always willing to lose the seat. And then even in this race, which people are frustrated with, billionaires and millionaires electing and choosing who go in the seat. So because I challenge our establishment, because even I challenge people in our party, I'm not the chosen one, because I challenge them to not to hurt them, but to correct them and have to perfect them. And so I'm not the chosen one. I wasn't given all the money because I won't sell out, because I focus on the people. And we're going to win this race, because it's just like in my aldermanic seat, although this is statewide, I've been all across the state, not just in Cook County, not just in Chicago, but throughout. And we're going to prevail.
When you're going door to door and asking for their vote, what's your elevator pitch? What do you tell them in 60 seconds?
In 60 seconds, I tell them this seat is about ethics and character. You want somebody that when one of your leaders in your community pick up the phone, that they're getting a return phone call. I tell them that you want someone that's going to be accessible and someone that's going to serve you and have a fiscal manager and keep these fees down, and that's somebody that's going to bring services to your community, and that we're going to focus on our youth. I'm the first one in this race that said I'm going to create 122 youth engagement officers, giving our young people all year round interns so they can get engaged civically. And so I tell them, you want someone with good character, with good ethics, and someone that's going to be accessible to you and giving you access to their government.
What makes you different from any of the other candidates seeking the Secretary of State office?
Well, the first thing that makes me different is my qualifications. That's the main thing. If this was a corporate America job, I'll tell you right now, neither one of my opponents would have got a second call back. So I am qualified for this position. The other thing is my ethics and my integrity. I am the only one in this race who does not have any ethical issues or facing any ethical challenges. And I'm the only one in this race who is not using this seat as a stepping stone. I'm not looking to be the next senator, the next governor. This is my last stop. I just want to serve people. And that's what makes me different. And when you're looking for that next seat, then you end up doing things not for the benefit of the community and of the residents of this state. You do it for the benefit of yourself so you can get to your next step. I am not looking to do that. I promise people, and I don't make a lot of promises in politics, but I tell people this is my last stop. And I just, like Jesse White, I just want to serve, not look to be the next senator or the next governor.
Tell me about some of your proposals for ethics reform, as well as your endorsements.
Absolutely. So from an ethics standpoint, for me, I want to expand the authority of the Inspector General's office. I want to designate integrity officers in every region of this state, so that, and put audit review committees in all 20 departments. People don't know, everybody just knows Secretary of State as driver services, but there are 20 different departments within the Secretary of State's office. People don't know that the Secretary of State is the state librarian. People don't know that the Secretary of State is the person who maintains and secures the Capitol complex in Illinois. Some people don't know about the business services of the Secretary of State in terms of the person who is responsible for incorporating companies. So I want to make sure that I redefine the definitions of persons and entity, because I don't think people should be using their seat to enrich themselves or their spouses. So I want to make sure that we have a great ethics package where we telling who our family members are, especially our spouses that's doing have any economic interest, disclose any economic interest of any elected officials and their spouses, who anybody that's doing lobbying or getting any interest from the state. And I want to make sure that we keep the politics and business of the Secretary of State's office separate. I want to make sure workers are evaluated on their quality of their performance and not on their political donations or quotas that they meet to get people elected. And so that's what's important to me from an ethical standpoint. And you asked the second part too to that. I forgot.
I'll get to it here after. We got to take a quick break. I'll get to it here in just a moment.
Okay.
That is Illinois Secretary of State candidate David Moore here on the WTIM morning show. More from him after this short break. Your stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. I'm Avery Cooper, back with you in just a moment.
WTIM.
Steve McClure for State Senate. Hardworking, conservative, fighting for us.
A fiscal conservative, McClure understands how taxes hurt working families.
That's why McClure fought the graduated income tax hike and is working to cut reckless spending at the state capitol.
As a prosecutor, Steve McClure has seen firsthand how crime hurts communities.
McClure led the fight against Chicago Democrats who are pushing to weaken criminal justice laws which protect families.
McClure stopped dangerous liberals trying to defund the police because Steve McClure supports law enforcement.
A conservative Republican, McClure is a strong proponent of Second Amendment rights.
We can count on Steve McClure to stick up for families and stand up for our values.
Steve McClure, the best choice in the Republican primary.
McClure for State Senate, the conservative Republican we need.
Paid for by friends of Steve McClure.
For over 100 years, Kemmer Village in Assumption, Illinois, has been supporting children and families in need. They've been able to provide residential treatment and foster care services, an on-ground school, equestrian therapy, recreation therapy, and a great summer camp because of the generosity of caring people across Illinois. Your investment can be as rewarding to you as it is to the children. Go to www.kemmervillage.org/donate and help make a difference in a child's life.
If you're 40 and over, you'll recognize these artists by their first names. Frank, Dean, Sammy, Andy, Nat, Diana, Michael. Well, if you're over 40 or even if you're under 40, you're all in for a treat across Christian County in Central Illinois. You'll hear Central Illinois' largest music library with over 3,500 songs. That's all we can say about it right now. But stay tuned for more when Frank, Dean, Sammy, Andy, Nat, Diana, and Michael are all heard on the radio, your computer, and smartphone.
I'm staff meteorologist Paul Schrabley, inviting you to listen to our regional radio forecast twice an hour from Taylorville, Pana, and Shelbyville to Effingham, Hillsborough, Vandalia, and Decatur. You can now rely on our localized weather forecasts. We'll tell you whether you'll need a snow shovel, raincoat, or sunscreen. We're proud to be a part of the regional radio team providing compelling local content to listeners across Central Illinois. I'm staff meteorologist Paul Schrabley. Glad to be part of your family every day.
I'm Kim Bourne, CEO of Taylorville Memorial Hospital, and we're hiring experienced nurses to join our great team. Learn more by clicking on our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
WTIM, your ag information station, provides over 8 hours a day of agriculture programming on the air, stream live, and in podcast. Find out all the on-air and online platforms you can hear WTIM by going to TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM morning show. I'm Avery Cooper. Glad to have you along. Your stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. I'm here on the phone with Secretary of State candidate David Moore. Great to have you along this morning.
Thank you so much, Avery. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm really enjoying this show. Thank you.
So before we went to break, I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about some of your endorsements. Tell me, what are some of your endorsements? Who are you proud to see back you?
Yeah, probably the ones I can think of that's right now that I'm most proud of. The two are from Congressman Danny Davis and the IVI, also the IVI IPO, the Independent Voters of Illinois, and the Independent Precinct organizations. And Dick Simpson. Dick Simpson is a professor and he's a professor at University of Illinois, Chicago, and a former alderman, but it's just his work as a ethics person at the University of Illinois, keeping government open and making it transparent. And he's always calling out, issues in government on both sides of the fence. And so for him to endorse me, that was big because he never endorsed people because he feels most elected officials are, not corrupt, but they just don't do the right things. And because of my ethics and years of service, he came out and endorsed me as well as Congressman Danny Davis, who's another person that doesn't always endorse certain people and a very ethical and outstanding person of good character in Congress. That's what he's known for. And he came out and endorsed me. And that's because people believe that we need ethical people in government. And so I appreciate those main two endorsements. And I got various other endorsements from local organizations within the city of Chicago and the county.
If elected as Secretary of State, a big portion of the Secretary of State position is to oversee elections. So I have to ask you, how do you, if elected, balance accessible and free elections with also security? That's a big topic in not just Illinois, but the nation right now.
So first of all, Illinois Secretary of State office is somewhat different from most Secretary of State's office throughout this country. We do not certify elections, and that's under the jurisdiction of the governor's office at the State Board of Elections. But as the Secretary of State, who by law do motor voter registration, access is critical to me, and making sure that we have the proper systems in place. First, dealing with the access. I want to make sure that as the Secretary of State, our young people get on these voting rolls quick. And that's why right at 16, people can get a driver's license, but they cannot register to vote. At 18, they will get a birthday card from me saying you're automatically registered to vote, giving them an opt-out option instead of an opt-in option, just so we can get our young people more engaged in the process. The part of that, what you're talking about, which is very important to me, and I learned that in corporate America, is data security. And so from the standpoint when I was in corporate America at Fortune 500 companies, everything that we had to do was to protect information. And that's what we have to do at the Secretary of State's office. Right now, they're running on a mainframe system, that's what we were using in the 80s and the 90s. And so we have to make sure that we're using technology that like the banks are using to make sure people's data is protected and secured. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, hey, the Pentagon got broken into, right? Their data system. but we have to make sure that we're getting experts in using the best practices out there to make sure that we're spending any money that we need to protect people's data.
Well, speaking of data, you're also focused on roads and regulations of the road, and to an extent anyway. One of the things that I've seen from you is digital license plates, advocating for digital license plates for people. What's the goal of that? And tell me a little bit about the overall idea.
Absolutely. Right now, digital license plates, I was the first one to talk about, and we're talking about modernizing and getting more into the 21st century. Digital license plates are used right now in California and Arizona and Michigan as an option, and I want us to have it as an option. And one of the things, three primary things, is that in some of the bigger cities, they're dealing with this epidemic of carjacking. And right now, people cannot catch the guys in the cars. And so with digital license plates, if your car is stolen, it would immediately, when you get to a phone, put a code in, it'll show up stolen. And then somebody can see it, whether it's the police or somebody driving, it's flashing stolen, and you can apprehend these offenders quickly and hold them accountable. But the other part of that is because there's a 90 to 95% chance of getting caught, then they will not even, there's a less chance that they would even carjack you. So there's a safety mechanism there. But here's the great thing that I think you all appreciate. People get tired of going into the DMV over and over again on many different occasions. And so in a second, with digital license plates, you won't have to go in to renew, you won't have to go in to register, and you won't have to go in and do any titling. You can do all that from the digital platform. And so also it brings in new revenue through advertising. That way I can keep the fees down, and that's important. Keeping these fees down. We got some of the highest fees at the Secretary of State's office in the nation, and it's important that me as a fiscal accounting manager, where I was having to do cost savings in corporate America, I want to make sure I do the same thing as the Secretary of State, and that's what the digital license plates offer as well.
That Secretary of State candidate David Moore. Thank you so much, Mr. Moore.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate this opportunity. And I hope Illinois doesn't deserve anything less; they deserve more. David Moore for Secretary of State, and please punch 15.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241 CF Taylorville, 107.5 W298 CD Shelbyville.